I'm
poked away, picked up by Andre from
and he hit it! He had his eyes on the prize and let it fly!
What's going on, all you Tannimals? It is another edition of the Tanndemonium Sports Show, broadcasting live as we do almost every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. I want to send an apology to you all, first and foremost, that are used to seeing us every Tuesday. J Law had a prior commitment. Courtney was under the weather. I was really under the weather, like it was a blanket. And Josh was busy doing Josh things. So, but we're back, re-energized, ready to go. J Law, how the hell are you, Mr. High Life, living it big? What were you gallivanting around with John Morant and the other Grizzlies since you got the hookup? Holla if you hear me.
I've been doing good. It's been a roller coaster this past week. Grizzlies are second in the West. That's great. Gas prices are over $4. That's not so great. So, yeah.
You kind of sound like Rocky Dennis. These things are great. Grizzlies in first place. The sun shining in the sun shining on my face.
See, but I gotta drive 30 miles to my job. So that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts, man.
Well, blame Vladimir. Vladimir.
Well, I guess I'll just have to get a Tesla then. You know, me a low-income American can afford that.
Another reason why my boss asked me on Friday during my review, he goes, "So how do you feel about the offense?" I said, "I'm never going into the office again." And of course, joining us on the second Tuesday of every month, as he does all the time, is my good friend Josh Taylor at Josh Taylor HD. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, or if you like to be the streaming warrior, you can catch him on 93.7 The Fan or on KDKA here in Pittsburgh. Josh, how are you, JT?
I'm good, man. It was last week was pretty awesome. It was like 6 or 7 months kind of coming together. I got to do something really awesome. I got to take my wife and my niece to go see Hamilton last week. So this was kind of like a long time coming. It was fantastic, man. It was amazing.
Now, is it better than it was on Disney? It is on Disney Plus?
I would say it's close, because the one on Disney Plus is the original Broadway cast.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to top that. But
yeah,
I'll give this cast credit. They found ways. And Bryan, you understand this. You and I go way back to like 25 years ago. We were doing musical theater together.
Yeah.
But this cast, they actually took the individual parts and they made them their own. They didn't try to be carbon copies.
I like that.
Of the original Broadway cast. They really did actually find a way to put their own interpretation into these characters. It was actually really good. But
awesome.
My wife's a huge Hamilton fan. This is one of those things where the tickets had gone on sale back in October. And I'm like, okay, this is something I want to do. And it was our wedding anniversary was around that time, and not too long before her birthday. I'm like, okay, Let's swinging big here. And it was we were, 6 or 7 months removed from our son being born. I'm like, I'm gonna swing big on this one, and it just so happened, and my credit card limit got increased. So
nice.
There you go.
But I'm like, okay, this is my shot to swing big. So
that's what I call
I did not throw away my shot.
There you go.
So we ended up doing that, and it was my niece had a Sweet 16, and she's a phenomenal kid, like just an outstanding student, got like a 4.2, 4.3 GPA, and I'm like, you know what, this is a way to have something great for her. And I know she's a huge fan. So I got tickets for the three of us. We went downtown into downtown Pittsburgh and got dinner and went and saw the show. And it was just an awesome night, man. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
That's what's up, man. And meanwhile, my last Tuesday was in bed trying to put a cork in both sides because, food wasn't staying down or staying in. So it's like, this isn't fun. This ain't good at all.
Tough.
Tell you one thing, man, stomach viruses are the gift that keeps on giving. Meanwhile, my wife goes, I'm like, why aren't you sick? She goes, because I work there. I'm in ground zero. And I said, oh, good for you. It's like, maybe you shouldn't be so isolated. And I'm like, no. I'm willing to sacrifice my immune system to stay away from people as much as possible. But I digress. Today has been an amazingly crazy day in sports. And now last week, I didn't feel so bad because last week there wasn't a whole bunch going on sports-wise. It was all speculation. All speculation. And then we come back with a house of fire. Some of the biggest news. Let's start right off with one of the biggest trades that we have had go on in recent NFL memory. Russ Wilson, the Russell Aloysius Wilson, no longer a Seahawk. He goes to the Seahawks' former division rivals in the old AFC West, the Denver Broncos, for 2 first-round picks. What was it? Hold on. Let me go. You got the numbers right in front of you?
No, I'm just trying to think.
I know there's 2 first-round picks. Drew Lock, and I saw a hilarious
Noah Font.
Couple seconds too, isn't it?
Couple seconds. I think there's more picks too.
2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, a 5th-rounder. Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Font. And I saw this hilarious. I saw someone post something real hilarious on Twitter. And it was on the basketball court. I can't remember who the basketball player was, but they were trying to throw it like court to court. They threw it coast to coast, and it flew like into like the 5th row. It's like Drew Lock overthrowing DK Metcalf.
Oh man.
Yeah, wow. Dude, Drew Lock got no love coming his way from anybody, man. The one thing that sucks about social media age is that if you ain't the best of the best, man, they will roast the hell out of you.
Even if you are, you still get roasted.
Even if you are good,
matter.
You get roasted.
It don't matter.
It ain't safe out here. It ain't safe out here at all.
It is not a safe. It is not a safe environment.
You're always catching strays, no matter what.
Oh yeah, them L's are coming left and right, and Drew Lock got hit with a big one right there. But so let's talk about it because Josh, you had a few things to say on this. I caught some of your quips. As far as, all the posturing, all the pandering that Pete Carroll and this Seahawks front office went through all season, into the off season, even last off season, all that pandering. Russ is our guy. This team is built around Russ. Was it though?
Honestly, they act like we can't read signs. Like they act like we can't put 2 and 2 together and get forward. This a year ago, Russell Wilson was saying, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to get traded, but if I were, here's where I want to go." Like he totally OJ'd it. Like
I know, right? I was just getting ready to say,
like he OJ'd it like a year ago. So it's like, okay, we know Russell Wilson kind of has at least 1 foot out the door. Then the season comes to an end, and on his social media, there's no mention of him with the Seahawks, no photos of anything with the Seahawks. Is him being in his hometown of Richmond, Virginia, and all of a sudden he's nobody else. He's just Russell Wilson. He just happens to play football for a team in Seattle, right?
Right.
And then at the combine, Pete Carroll says, "Oh, we have no intention of dealing Russell Wilson." I'm sitting there thinking,
so why are you bringing it up then?
I'm like, well, granted, he was asked about it, so you can't fault him for that. But at the same time, you're thinking, wait a minute. Your quarterback talked about where he would go a year ago. Now all of a sudden there's no intent to move Russell Wilson.
Right.
And this is considering the fact that you lost him for a couple games and your season ended with only 7 wins. You've traded away draft picks like they were candy for deals that were just awful. The Jamal Adams trade, if that does not seal Pete Carroll's fate, then something's wrong in Seattle. If that ultimately is the thing that should have probably done him in and didn't, then the problem was with the management in Seattle because it should have sealed his fate as far as how much that blew up in their faces. And the fact that Denver was able to cash in the way they were. And honestly, I don't think people realize just everything Denver had going for them as far as the draft capital they had built up, which is why, not to totally jump ahead of you guys, but when the discussion of possibilities for Aaron Rodgers came up, I said the only one that made sense in trade is Denver, because Denver has the trade capital to move enough things to get Aaron Rodgers, because they can move draft picks. They can even shed cap space and be fine and send a player or two that brings him in and also brings in the guy who's eventually going to come with him, but we'll get back to that in a second. But my point was Denver had the things that they needed to move in order to do it. So when you found out that Aaron Rodgers was staying in Green Bay, and Bryan, I said this over the weekend on my own radio show on 93.7 The Fan. I said, look, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback market. We don't know anything else is going to happen until we know what Aaron Rodgers is doing first.
Right.
If we know he's leaving, then we'll figure out what it takes to get other guys. If he's staying, then we're going to have to find out who's the first guy to go and what it's going to take to get that guy. Right. It just so happened it was Russell Wilson. And I don't think we found out how much Russell Wilson was worth as much as we found out how much Denver was willing to pay for him.
Right.
And Denver had enough on tap. They're like, look, we will give all this up, because they had 2 first-rounders to move. They had 2 second-rounders to move. They had 3 players where they're like, yeah, we can afford to get rid of these guys, so send them on over and bring Russell Wilson in. And it did not shock me that Russell Wilson was traded. I think it shocked me that Denver gave up so much to get him. And I think that's the thing that caught me off guard. But at the same time, there aren't many other options out there.
They're not.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's had shoulder surgery. I mean, the trade market was pretty much those 3 guys, wasn't it? Because the closer we get, it sounds like Derek Carr's probably not going to be moved, because Josh McDaniels doesn't seem like he wants to move Derek Carr. If anything, he's going to want a quarterback walking in the door. So your trade market
was need him. He's going
to need a quarterback. So literally, your trade market was 3 guys, and 1 got taken off immediately.
Right.
So now you're down to 2, with maybe Carson Wentz being the extra guy there, but at the same time, we're still trying to sort out what the Colts want to do. Right. So your trade market's Russell Wilson. That's it. Because Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion, is stricken off because he has shoulder surgery, so he has no value. Right. So now your trade market is Russell Wilson.
Right.
And you found out exactly what Denver was willing to do, because they didn't have many other options.
Right. And Jackson, Russell Wilson is 33 years old. The man still has, at minimum, 5 to 7 good years left before he starts breaking down. Now, is this division now the Broncos to win? Or are they at least on par with the Chiefs, where they are now that they're not going to get laughed out of Arrowhead. They're not going to get laughed out of their own stadium when the Chiefs come to call.
Well, I still think it's the Chiefs division. The Chiefs are still, I would say, on paper, the best team in that division. But Russell Wilson, what that does is it makes the Broncos kind of leapfrog the Chargers, and I would even say the Raiders also. And I know we had a big discussion in the NFL chat today about this. Obviously, it was breaking news, and it's all we're talking about, us NFL heads in the chat. We know the Raiders finished second, but I honestly think Russell Wilson alone to this team, it was a 7-win team last season. I think his addition and the fact that they still kept their core of their offense and their defense together. They gave up a lot of picks. That's true, but they really have their core still together. And who knows, maybe they can pull some magic out of a hat and get some really good solid picks later in the draft and whatever picks that they still have left after this. But like Josh said, they built up a lot of draft capital. They got a couple first-round picks for Von Miller, who's even interested in coming back at this point. And he very well may. Who knows? He may want to come back to Denver, finish his career.
He went and won his Super Bowl. Now he's just going to come on right back.
Exactly. And try to win another Super Bowl too. But I think Russell Wilson at least gets this team to 11, maybe 12 wins. Maybe more.
I can definitely see that. I can definitely see just his presence alone.
I think they
winning them another 5 games. I can see that easily.
I think they should be the second favored team in that division. The Chiefs kind of got it together at the end of the regular season. Obviously, they didn't go on to win the Super Bowl or anything, or even get to the Super Bowl. But they started playing better that second half of the season. So we'll just have to see. But I love this trade. I remember a few months ago when we were talking about similar things. I said that the Broncos were a Russell Wilson away from competing. So I felt like that was the move for similar reasons that Josh felt it. So I love this move for Denver. Somehow they get another Hall of Fame quarterback when the team that he's with is done with him, and maybe it turns into another Super Bowl for them. And maybe that's the secret for John Elway. He can't draft a quarterback to save his life, but give him 5 or 6 years in between quarterbacks, and he'll get a future Hall of Famer on the back end of his career and get him another Super Bowl.
I think it's so weird when we're talking about this Denver team and how much that makes them better off the hop, because, the one thing that kind of gets set aside from this whole story is the type of team that Russell Wilson's walking into. He's walking into an offense that has a ton of young talent at the skill position. I mean, You're talking about the receivers, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Who am I missing? There's a fourth one, Cortland Sutton. You're walking into those receivers. And then you have Javonte Williams, a running back they just got recently. So you got a lot of talent at skill positions. The offensive line probably could use a tweaking here and there, but it's not terrible. And then the defense that, by the way, they only had Von Miller for 7 games, but they were still 3rd in the league in points allowed. They were still 8th in total yards, and they were 3rd in the red zone. That defense was not terrible. Here's the reason why you need a Russell Wilson. 4 of their last 6 games of the regular season, Denver didn't score more than 1 touchdown.
Right.
That's why you need a Russell Wilson, because remember, they lost 4 in a row to end the season. This is a 7-win team. That was actually 7-6 going into the last 4 games of the season. You have Russell Wilson on that team, and your offense can score more than 1 touchdown in 3 of those last 4 games. Maybe you're not 7-10. Maybe you're 10-7. Maybe you're in the playoffs. That's the difference when you add that guy to this team. And there are people around Pittsburgh going, well, was Denver that much better? Was Denver that much better than the Steelers? Were the Steelers that much worse? Well, the Denver's roster was better. They had the important pieces that the Steelers didn't have. Let me tell you something. If the Steelers had Denver's receivers and running back and even a semblance of that offensive line, the Steelers might win a division. Like, that's the difference of what Denver's roster looked like compared to what the Steelers have. And people are thinking, well, I can't believe he went to the Steelers. I can. It makes perfect sense to me. Now, yes, there's the argument where they're in the same division now as Vegas and Kansas City and who am I missing? There's a third team in there.
Los Angeles.
Vegas, Kansas City, and the Chargers. And that's fine. That's a sound argument. But there's no reason why that team couldn't be a playoff team next season. None whatsoever.
When you had 7 wins with Terry Bridgewater and Drew Lock.
Exactly. So now we're talking about a team that at the very least should be a playoff team. And at the most, if you can split 1 of 2 with Kansas City, maybe you got a shot at winning the division. That's how realistic this becomes.
Now let's flip
a Kansas City team that has to retool, by the way.
Right. Now let's flip the switch. Let's look at what this trade does to Seattle. Seattle is rebuilding, for sure. And I said this on Twitter earlier on today. The one big thing that this trade does is it guarantees you, Steeler fans, that Kenny Pickett will not be there. Malik Willis will not be there. Sam Howell will not be there. The 4 big, the fourth name is escaping me right now.
Matt Corral.
Yes, Matt Corral will not be there. Steeler fans, and I said it last week, I have said it since this whole Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh thing started. He is not coming here. He is not. And then people started getting on this. Now, granted, when Kenny Pickett started setting it on fire last fall, I was like, wow, how cool would it be if he was here? And I asked you, Josh, I said, do you think he makes it here next year? And you said probably not if he keeps it up on this pace. Guess what? He's not going to be here. Get the wishful thinking out of your head. He's not going to be here. None of those 4 guys are going to be here. Matter of fact, and I posted this too. Everyone's like, oh, who's our starting quarterback going to be? Mason Rudolph's taking off that hood. It's me, Pittsburgh. It was me the whole time. Matter of fact, hold on. I got to get the effect.
I don't know why. I just
it's me, Pittsburgh.
He's doing it.
Because the bottom line is what this trade has done. The same Seattle team who made a Horrible trades. Horrible trades. Now they got 2 first-rounders. And their main first-rounder that they're getting from the Broncos, they're picking top 12.
9th overall pick.
Yeah.
9th overall. They're in
And they
the
can
top
use it on
10.
the quarterback. And I'd be surprised if it was a Malik Willis. I'd be stunned.
Malik, I guarantee. Now here's the thing, and I'm going to pull this up here, or better yet, Courtney, if you can, pull up the draft order for this year's draft. I don't care if it's the one that's pre the trade or not. It don't matter. But the whole point that I'm trying to make, if you look at the teams that are drafting in the top 10, besides now the Seahawks, a majority of them need quarterbacks. The Giants need a quarterback. The Panthers need a quarterback. The Seahawks need a quarterback. And
Washington needs one at 11.
Washington needs one at 11. So your top 12 picks, 4 of those teams need a quarterback. Those 4 big names at quarterback right now are not going to be there. So
and one could go in the teens if it slips out of the top dozen, because there's a couple in the teens that need quarterbacks, including New Orleans. So don't forget that. So we don't know what's going to happen with Jameis Winston yet. So that's a
right. So there's no way any of these guys. Sorry, nope. Kenny Pickett does not just cross the hall on the south side.
I don't know why this thought bumped into my head, but if Kenny Pickett was to go to Seattle, this is the headline I imagine: Kenny Pickett heir to Matt Hasselbeck. I don't know why. I don't know why. That's funny. I'm not saying that he's going to be Matt Hasselbeck, but
I don't know if that's flattering or damning. I don't know if that's
I know.
Yes. Or if that's
I know.
praise.
That's just yes.
That's up to interpretation. Is the thing. Yeah. That's just the thing. Listen, it's not indicative of my feelings of Kenny Pickett. I like Kenny Pickett. I'm just saying that was the thing that popped in my head. There you go. Someone use it, and it's like, if you're a big Matt Hasselbeck guy, then use it. If you think that's the case, if you don't like Matt Hasselbeck and you're not happy with that, then you can use that if that was to occur.
So
you look. Here's the crazy part, though. Sorry, Bryan. To Jackson's point, let's say it is Kenny Pickett. Let's say Seattle's sold on Kenny Pickett at 9, and maybe Malik Willis is already gone. I don't know, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, they take Kenny Pickett at 9. Seattle's in a pretty decent position, because as of right now, according to overthecap.com, they've got $35 million in cap space. Mm-hmm. So they can use some of these picks. I want to say they got 3 in the top 50 or 4 in the top 50. They can bring in guys to fill in slots with those picks and still have plenty of room to bring in a free agent or 2 and be okay. And that's not counting the fact they can restructure a couple guys. They might be able to restructure a contract or 2 and bring some of that cap space down and give themselves a little bit more wiggle room. So we're saying Seattle is rebuilding, but are they really rebuilding as much as having an opportunity to reload if they do it right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I trust them to.
That's the problem. Yeah. Can they do it? Because they've proven, this front office has proven, they are not good decision making. They are not good at decision making.
I think they should definitely take this year as, like, I don't want to say, like, it's so early. It's March, and you hate to say, well, it's time to throw in the towel on this season. You know, we haven't even gotten to OTAs yet.
And they don't have to, technically. They technically don't have to throw in the towel.
They technically don't have to, but just there's so many questions. Like, do you want to bring in? Because I fully believe Pete Carroll should not be here for if they do commit into a rebuild, or even at all in general. I don't think Pete Carroll should be here. So it's like, if you draft a quarterback, no matter who it is, of the 4 quarterbacks that are probably going to be taken in the first round, whichever one Seattle falls in love with and is their guy, they take him at 9. Do you want him? I think they should just, and this is just my personal opinion, let him sit a year. I guess run with Drew Lock or Geno Smith or whoever is back there, and just, because there's not a good coach available right now, I don't think. Unless you could try to steal some of the coordinators that didn't get a job early in the year, which you potentially could. I don't know. Like, the timing on this is really weird, because it's like other teams, they had the advantage of, while the playoffs are going, they're finding their head coaches and they're putting together their coaching staffs, and getting everything together that way.
Real quick before we move on, in the top dozen, you got the Lions at number 2, They might not. I don't know if they're sold on Jared Goff as of yet.
I see them taking the best guy on the board, though.
They'll take the best guy on the board, whoever they see it is,
because they have a lot of holes they need to fill.
Right. The Houston Texans at number 3. Davis Mills, he did show really, really well. But is he the guy that you think you can build your franchise around? They might try to go for someone else.
I don't see them using a quarterback at 3 because I don't know if any of these guys is like number 3 overall talent. Like they may stick to the board.
But so you never know.
Those are 2 teams I expect to kind of go with the best guy available.
The Jets are probably going to do the same thing, stick with the best guy available. They seem to be ready to still stick with Zach Wilson. The Giants, we already talked about them. The Panthers, Giants at 5, Panthers at 6, Giants again at 7.
That's where I see things getting interesting. Right around 6, 7-ish. Carolina, that second pick for the Giants. I don't know if they use the first one on the quarterback, but they may use that second one. That's where I see maybe quarterbacks starting to drop off the board because Carolina's got to figure things out too. Are they sold on Sam Darnold? I don't know. There's a handful of teams, and especially that latter part of the first 10, that got to figure out what they want to do, and they won't have a lot of time to do it.
Falcons at 8 now, and we're going to talk a little bit about this situation with Calvin Ridley, but the Falcons are going to need a quarterback because, I'm sorry, Matt Ryan's not getting any younger. And honestly, if I were the Falcons, I probably would have moved on from him a couple of years ago.
I mean, they had Justin Fields right in their lap last season and they didn't do anything.
And then now you've got the Seahawks at 9. And then the football team, not Washington football team anymore, the Commanders at 11. And then maybe, just maybe, you even get the Vikings at 12.
And there's one other thing to keep in mind as we're looking at this. There's a team in the lower part of the first round that's lurking, and they got 3 first-round picks to play with. And if they find a guy they like, they can trade up and really mess everything up. Philly can throw a wrench into this whole thing.
Yes.
If they decide to take a couple of those picks, because I want to say they have 2 back-to-back in the teens. They can take those 2 back-to-back in the teens, 15, trade up 16. Into a top 10. They can use those 15 to 16, package them and say, hey, we'll give you 2 for the price of 1 to move up in the top 10, and they can find themselves up there really quickly.
And they would still have pick 19.
That's what I'm saying. So could you imagine Philly trying to find a way to slip in there to make?
Is Howie Roseman that smart though? Fair question.
That is a very fair question.
But Philly could pull one of those Baltimore type moves with the Steelers, slip right in there, and make things a little bit more complicated for the Giants. So I don't rule out Philly either, depending on what they're looking for and how desperate they are.
That's a good point. There's a lot more that I want to get into, but we're just about at the 27 minute mark. So let's take a quick break. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers going back to the Packers. And of course, we'll get into Calvin Ridley. Yo, my dude got done dirty. But we'll talk about that in a minute. This is Bryan Tann on the Tanndemonium Sports Show. We're broadcasting live on Twitch as we do every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. We'll be right back. The following broadcast is brought to you in association by XP Coffee Company. XP Coffee Company is the fresh brewed coffee made for gamers by gamers. Get amazing flavors like Choco Loco in 8, 12, or 16-ounce bags. Or level up and get Illusion, Isolation, Nightmare, or the Majestic Throne blends in light, medium, or dark roast in whole bean, coarse French press, drip, or fine espresso in 12-ounce, 16-ounce, or 2-pound bags. Wow! Shipping worldwide. If you're in the U.S., go to usa.xpcoffee.co. If you're in Europe or in the U.K., go to www.xpcoffee.co. XP Coffee Company, for gamers, by gamers. All right, we're back here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show. Aaron Rodgers, guys, I said it. I said he was going back to Green Bay. 4 years. Now, Pat McAfee said that it wasn't 4 years, $200 million, but the official report coming out, and it's even courtesy of NFL.com, 4 years, $200 million.
Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers did say on Twitter today, I thought, let me double check. While
you're looking it up, I'll say this though.
Could have been something fake. I don't know. Oh no, wait, no.
It's amazing to me though, all the people, especially here in Pittsburgh, Josh. Oh, when Aaron Rodgers gets here. So everybody fussed and complained about Ben being slow at 38 years old. Aaron Rodgers, 38 years old. These are the years that quarterbacks will start breaking down.
Yeah. So here's what Aaron Rodgers said on Twitter. He said, "Hey, everyone, just wanted to clear some things up. Yes, I will be playing with the Packers next year. However, reports about me signing a contract are inaccurate, as are the supposed terms of the contract I signed, in quotations. I'm very excited to be back. #year 18.
So, all right. So he hasn't
He's
signed
back,
anything.
but
he hasn't
who
signed
knows what it
anything
is.
yet, but he did say he's coming back to the team.
Yeah.
And so now, like I was saying, though, everyone here in Pittsburgh, and even I'm not going to mention names, but even some of your broadcast colleagues, no, Aaron Rodgers gets here. It's like, settle down.
Don't name names. That list is too long. Pretty much,
It's way
all
too
but like
long.
2 dudes.
It's too annoying. And it's too
Really,
annoying.
It's crazy.
Right. Like, for number one, there is no way that Mr. Rooney is going to mortgage the future for a 38-year-old quarterback. Now, if it came to a guy like maybe Russell Wilson, who's 5 years... What?
Time out.
What's that?
Deion Sanders is having to have 2 toes amputated?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, go check out his Instagram.
Why are they chopping off Primetime's feet?
Oh, go look at his Instagram. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff you didn't plan on seeing.
No, that's okay.
I'm a do.
I walked in
leave
on
that for after the show.
Yeah, I walked in on my mom once. I don't need no much more horror than that.
Oh,
But no,
that took a turn.
Yeah, that took a drastic turn left. Let's go back to. So here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers, 38 years old. Eliminate the age aspect of it and him breaking down for a moment. But when you also look at what Aaron Rodgers brings to the table as far as a lot of the controversy over the last couple of years and some of his choices of behavior, there's no way in the world that that's going to fly here in Pittsburgh. There's no way Mr. Rooney is going to mortgage the future for that, plus being 38 years of age. And especially for a guy who hasn't been to the Super Bowl since the last time the Steelers were in the Super Bowl.
The big issue I have with people that are so gung-ho about this possibly happening, or that were so gung-ho about it, they keep trying to kill the whole, well, it's not about mortgaging the future. You're right. It's not about mortgaging the future, because you're talking about bringing in the guy that helps you in the present, but the truth of the matter is bringing him in is going to mortgage the present as much as it would mortgage the future. You saw what it took just to get Russell Wilson from Seattle. The Steelers only have 6 draft picks walking into this draft.
Right.
They only have 6. They don't even have one in one of the rounds that are actually set up. That's one thing that you're looking at. Not to mention the fact he's going to eat up cap space that for the first time in a long time, the Steelers actually have room to work with against the salary cap. That very seldom happens. They're usually spending to the cap and having to restructure to get guys down, or maybe shaving a contract here and there, or maybe getting rid of a guy here and there to bring their cap number down,
or begging Ben to restructure,
or
his
begging
contract.
somebody to restructure, trying to give themselves more room, not walking in with room that they can make bigger. They can restructure a couple guys and add 15 million, maybe 20 million to that cap space, which I think is around 28, 29 million right now. Then they can get rid of 3 or 4 guys and add another 25 million onto that. So now you're looking at a number that could be anywhere between 70 to 90 million, depending on what they decide to do. The Steelers usually aren't in that position.
Not even
now,
close.
I say all that to say this. So you can clear out the cap space to bring in Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is you still got to put other things together. Because I had a friend that texted me. He's like, "What? Why do people think Aaron Rodgers is a bad idea?" I said, okay, let's set Aaron Rodgers to the side for a second. Who's your best corner coming into this season? You're like, oh, it's Joe Hayden. No, it's not.
Nope,
he's a free
gone.
agent.
He's a free agent.
Oh, well, it's Akella Witherspoon. No, it's
No,
not.
He's a free agent.
He's a free agent. Who's your best safety? Well, it's Minka. Who's your starting strong safety? Well, it's Terrell Edmonds. No, it's not. He's a free agent. And who's your best offensive lineman under contract right now? Who's the best guy on that line? Can you pick one? Is it Dan Moore, who just started his rookie season at left tackle? Was he your best lineman this past season? Does that make you feel better? It should not. Now, granted, yes, you're going to get a healthy Tyson Alualu back that's going to help you in the interior defensive line. Kevin Colbert sounds very optimistic about the chance of getting Stephon Tuitt back, which is also going to help your interior defensive line, because not only do you get 2 starters back and one who played at a really good level his last full season when he's healthy, now you build a lot of depth because guys like Chris Wormley and guys like Isaiah Loudermilk, they now become your second string guys, and that builds quality depth because those guys got a lot of reps last season, and that's not counting if you bring Montravius Adams back or if you draft a guy. So now you got a lot of depth in your defensive line. And those 2 guys who are already on your books, by the way, you don't have to spend anything extra to bring those guys in. They're already on the books. They're just healthy now and on the field next year. Fingers crossed. So that's one thing you feel better about. But do you feel good at linebacker? Do you hope Devin Bush is healthy and maybe ready to go? Maybe having 2 healthy defensive linemen makes his job a little bit easier and he's not as gun shy. Maybe he looks more like 2019 Devin Bush instead of 2021 Devin Bush. At least that's what you hope for. But do you still have issues you got to fix? You got to get at least 1, if not 2 starting corners. You got to get a starting strong safety. You got to get at least a couple offensive linemen. Oh, yeah, by the way, 3 or 4 of your receivers might be gone. You got to replace those guys. So
James
you have
Washington
to fill
is
holes.
definitely gone. James Washington's does not come back. I don't care what Colbert or Tomlin offer him. He ain't coming back.
I don't think they really plan on offering him anything. The question mark of all of them, does Juju come back? That's the one question that you ask yourself. Ray McLeod says he wants to stay here. He wants to play for Mike Tomlin. I feel like there's a chance he stays. Plus, they need a return guy. He fits that role. People here will be upset, but you got to fill that slot with somebody.
Better than Sean Switzer.
Right. The question is, does Juju want to come back, and are you willing to pay him? That's the remaining question at wide receiver. But we just talked about 6, 7 holes that you have to fill that have nothing to do with the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. And that's considering the fact that, yes, the quarterback position gets better, but you want somebody to block for him because you mentioned it. 38-year-old quarterback, you don't want him getting hit every other snap.
Nope.
You don't want him dropping back running for his life, kind of like Ben Roethlisberger had to a couple times this past season, to the point where he was trying to get rid of the ball in less than three seconds, regardless of if the play was drawn up for it or not. You don't need that problem a second time.
Multiple times this season, Ben Roethlisberger looked like freaking Tim Robbins in Quarterback Princess, dropping back to pass and getting hit as soon as he took his steps back. And if you don't remember Quarterback Princess, look it up in your Google machine.
And I don't think they want to go through that problem. Bear in mind, the Steelers have been in the bottom third in the league in team QBR for the past 3 seasons. They don't want that problem for a 4th season in a row. If you were to bring in, like you mentioned, 38-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who, in the words of Omar in The Wire, ain't going to want to hit on that body. You're going to have to protect that guy. Plus, you got to get him some skill guys, and you got to replenish that defense that can get you the ball back, assuming everybody's healthy and you got guys doing their roles. You can't get all those things done and bring that guy in at the same time. There are going to be holes. There are going to be things missing. So let's say, for the sake of argument, they do that. Let's say you haven't fixed anything at linebacker. Let's say you're probably not as strong at corner, and maybe you didn't fix a strong safety situation, or the guy you brought in, regardless of who it is, just didn't work out. And let's say you still won 9-10 games, make the playoffs, and still losing the first round because you didn't fix every problem. And what happens at the end of all of it? Who's going to get blamed for it? Mm-hmm. Not Aaron Rodgers.
Nope.
Mike Tomlin's going to get blamed for it. Oh, well, that's Tomlin's fault. He should have brought in better guys, and he should have given Aaron Rodgers receivers. Oh, wait. Hold on a second. A lot of your resources you used up to go get Aaron Rodgers. So let's
right. So what do you want? You can't have one without the other.
You can't have it both ways. So you either use the resources that you have responsibly, filling in holes for not just starters. You need depth too, because the line of demarcation for starters and backups on this team, there's a great gulf fix there. So you got to do all that.
There's more than just a gulf fix. There's an Atlantic Ocean size.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah. I heard someone say, you got starters and everybody else. There's no middle class on this team. I thought that was a great analogy.
That's a very good analogy.
You got to build depth. You got to get starters, and not to mention the fact you got to try to get younger, because you got a handful of guys on this team.
Cam Hayward's already moving.
Cam Hayward's in his 30s. Stephon Tuitt stepping out of that role. You already lost David DeCastro and Marquise Pouncey. They're already gone. So you're already making that transition on the offensive line. You're going to have to make that transition on the defensive line. You're going to have to make that transition at corner at some point, because Joe Hayden is getting to that point where he's, as Chris Rock would say, he's not old, but a little bit too old to be in the club.
Yep.
Joe Hayden, a little bit too old to be starting at corner. So
that's
another problem you're trying to transition from. You can do all that in a draft like this one, especially in a draft where we're talking about quarterbacks going in the first round, but none of these guys really set themselves head and shoulders ahead of anybody else.
No.
This is not a steak and eggs draft. It's a meat and potatoes draft, and the Steelers need meat and potatoes guys to make that roster stronger. So when you do all those things, who the quarterback is may not matter as much as long as that guy runs the offense well, hands it off, or throws it to the guy that he needs to give it to and doesn't turn the ball over.
Now, this is what I do. Jackson, tell me if you agree with me here. This is what I do. I take a look at first I wait to see what the Colts are planning on doing with Carson Wentz. I see what they're going to do. If they cut him, I have a discussion. Mitch Trubisky, I have a discussion. If I don't like what I'm hearing, maybe I make a look. I start looking at a Marcus Mariota or Teddy Bridgewater. I start to have conversations with them, see what they have to offer. Maybe I give one of them an opportunity to come in to compete for the position. I draft I find the young stud offensive lineman that I need to really, really, really make the case. Also start talking to some veteran offensive linemen as well to help shore that up. And I bring some studs in on the defensive side of the ball and, start shoring up some of these positions. So that way, and let's just say for lack of a better term, because Mariota's been on my mind a lot lately. I've really been thinking about a Marcus Mariota lately. Let's say you bring in Marcus Mariota because he does have the mobility. And he can throw the ball. He was not in the best of situations in Tennessee. And then he ends up sitting behind David Carr, which really is not the demotion that people make it want to seem like, because Derek Carr is a good quarterback.
He's a starter right now.
He's a starter.
And I think he should be the Raiders franchise quarterback. Granted, is he top 5? No. But he's probably one of the dozen. He's
what I used to.
He's
the one that I used to look at Big Ben as. And if you look at it from an All-Pro 2008, you have your gold tier, your silver tier, and your bronze tier. Is Derek Carr gold tier? Absolutely not. But he's definitely not bronze.
He's probably in the upper part of the silver tier.
He's a solid silver tier, which is exactly what Ben was.
You can win with a silver tier quarterback if you build a proper team around.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I'll get to that. I'll get to that.
The Ravens won a Super Bowl with a low bronze tier quarterback. If you can shore up that offensive line, you can bring in a Marcus Mariota. And all he has to do is get the play action going, get it to Najee, because that offensive line is going to open holes when they start to stack the box. Then you start throwing the ball, or you start running some run pass. You start running some options,
Brian.
And then the defense does the rest.
Brian, I'm over here stretching because I'm stretching my journalistic muscles. I've been doing research for the past couple weeks about this. Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers podcast. Shout out to my guy Chris. We have been having this discussion for like a good solid 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. About what this Steelers team can be and what it doesn't need to be in order to win games. Okay. I've been breaking this down for a long time, and I've been telling this stat to anybody that would listen. 9 times last season, the Steelers defense held their opponent to 20 points or less and had an even or better, whether it was even or positive turnover margin. Mm-hmm. They won all 9 of those games.
Yes. All
9 of them, and they were 9-7-1. Now, there was a 10th game where they held the opponent to 20 points or less on defense, but they had a negative turnover margin. What game was that?
I believe that was the Lions game.
The tie against Detroit. Mm-hmm. And they were -2 in the turnover margin, and both turnovers that were the -2 came in overtime when they should have sealed that game.
Yep.
That's the margin that we're talking about here with that defense that could have made them that much closer to being a division winner. That's we're talking about the margin of error here. You take all that, and this is also a defense that was 32nd in the league in rushing. They were dead last in rushing, but they were top 5 in third downs. They were top 5 in the red zone. They weren't as terrible as people make them out to be. And this is an offense that could not score points. They were in the bottom third league at scoring points. So what happens? You make your running game better by upgrading your offensive line. You're going to make your passing game better by upgrading your offensive line. You're going to make your run defense better by upgrading your defensive line. Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to give up even fewer points on a regular clip. Not just counting the 10 or so games, but you'll probably be able to do it more often and bring that average down. So maybe you save 4 or 5 points a game just by having a better run defense. Maybe you add 3 or 4 points to your average by having a better offensive line and a more reliable run game. And Mason Rudolph talked about this, I believe it was with Jim Rome. He said Matt Canada likes to run the ball, run play action, and put the ball down the field. Well, the best offenses in the league all do the same thing. They run the ball, they use play action, and they go down the field. So we should not be surprised that this is what the Steelers would want to do, because if you upgrade your offensive line, it makes that game plan a lot easier. And I say all that to say this because, Bryan, you brought up Baltimore. I was talking about the research that I've been doing. In the last 40 years, fellas, there have been 9 teams that have won Super Bowls without Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And I could run them down for you. I'm not counting this past season because the discussion of Matthew Stafford's not done yet.
Correct.
2017 Eagles, 2012 Ravens, the 2002 Bucks, the 2000 Ravens, the 91 Giants, or the 91 Redskins, the 90 Giants, and then Washington in 87 and 82. All 9 of those teams had the same thing in common. They were all really good at keeping points off the board, and all but one had positive turnover margins. Only one didn't. And of all those defenses, all but one were in the top 10 in scoring defense. They had good defense. They cut down their turnovers, and they ran the ball relatively well. All of them maybe 10th or 11th or better in the league in rushing. They ran the ball well. They minimized turnovers. They had good defense, and they got the ball back. They have all but one had positive turnover margins. You can win a Super Bowl with that criteria. And 9 times in the last 40 years. So on average, that's once every 5 years, a little bit less. It's not impossible. Now, am I saying this team can go and win a Super Bowl? No, but it puts together a really good formula that can make you successful because, by the way, there was a team that did it this past season, and they got to the NFC Championship game, and they were one takeaway from going to the Super Bowl. I'm talking about San Francisco. If Jaquiski Tartt squeezes an interception, they're in the Super Bowl. They get past the Rams, and the Rams probably don't win it. This is what we're talking about. This is not a recipe that's new or that's proven to fail. It has proven to work. Could it work for this team? It could if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention the fact, Jackson, that when you look at what Mike Tomlin has done in the past, let's not talk so much about these last few years of the Ben Roethlisberger decline because it's been astronomical. But but in the years where Ben was still Ben, I'm talking 2018, 2017 and back, the defense has really been able to step up because Tomlin is a defensive mind first and foremost. This defense has been able to step up when this defense has the pieces, but this entire team started falling apart the moment that Ben started to decline. That lets you know how important he was to this franchise. So, my whole point to you, Jackson, is all the stuff that we've talked about already coming up to this, so I want to wrap it in a bow so we can move on to Calvin Ridley, is that all of this talk about Aaron Rodgers and blah, 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 it's not necessary. You do not need an Aaron Rodgers. You do not need to mortgage your present and your immediate future when you play the cards right with what you've got now.
Yeah, and like Josh said, the Steelers are in a position to where they can add pieces. They can add them through free agency. The Steelers have a good track record through the drafts, and they can find some studs in there. Whoever they draft, what pick do they have in this draft?
20.
Steelers are
they got 20 overall.
20 overall, yeah. You could easily find a guy at 20 that could stick with your franchise for 10, 15 years.
It's fun because people love to kill them for Kendrick Green. Meanwhile, they got their first-round pick right with Najee Harris. They got their second-round pick right with Freiermuth. They got their fifth-round pick right with Dan Moore. They got their seventh-round pick right with Trey Norwood at safety. I mean, they that's 4 guys I'm talking about already that they got production out of consistently by the end of this season. So they did well just with this most recent draft class.
And with no...
Sorry, that was my kid. My kid Rick rolled me.
I was about to say, I thought...
No, he sends me.
I heard Rick Astley in the background. I was starting to get excited.
He sends me a message on Discord, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I did some D&D fan art. Tell me what you think." I click it, and it says, "Hey, click for the this website does cookies." I click it, and there's Rick Astley. I'm like, "You're right."
I can't do that.
Oh man,
can't do that.
And now he thinks now he loves the fact. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll talk to you later. I'm doing a show." He's laughing his little ass off. Jerk. But
But
anyway.
I mean, yeah, go out there in this draft, find guys that are going to be cornerstones for the future, offensive line, defensive line. If you lose a couple skilled position players, there's a lot of receivers in this draft too. You can find one pretty deep. And then you could take a flyer on a Mariota, on Trubisky, even, which I saw.
See,
a
I
rumor.
wouldn't even see. I would have the conversation with Trubisky, but I wouldn't mess with Trubisky because he's going to demand.
Well,
way too much.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that I saw a rumor where the Giants are talking with Trubisky to bring him
I'm fine
in
with that.
to
He's good
have
enough for the
competition
Mars.
with Danny Dimes.
And it's Brian Dable, who was the Bills' offensive coordinator last season. He's now the head coach.
That
He
would
knows
make
Trubisky
sense.
well. It's a
Yeah.
good reunion there. It makes sense. Now, granted,
nice little story.
the discussion has been the past week about what you would do in free agency, and if I had to pick one of the free agent guys, Trubisky would be my pick. But the problem is there's going to be some heavy QB thirst in this offseason because we talked about it. There's like a 12 or 13 teams that probably have a quarterback that they're comfortable with, and everybody else is gunning for one.
Yep.
So the price on Mitch Trubisky is going to go up. And I hear someone who keeps saying, like, what does that say when he's, he took a year off and he's now that popular? It means that the rest of the market is dry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Right.
it means. It means he's the best guy available because there isn't that much of a market, because there aren't that many out there. It has nothing to do with how good he is. It's about who's available. There aren't many available. So his stock is going to go up just because, and I keep reminding people, there's a difference between a choice and a lack of options. This quarterback market is largely built on a lack of options.
And a wrench to throw in that QB market too. Before we move on, I did also see today that the trial for Deshaun Watson, I believe, is supposed to start on Friday.
Oh boy!
So
that's gonna have a lot of
I mean, I don't know. So if he's cleared of stuff or gets settlements and he's fine and he's available, then that could change. That could change a lot.
Because if you just saw 2 first rounders and 2 second rounders and two players and a 5th rounder go for Russell Wilson, there's going to be a lot getting moved around for Deshaun
It's gonna be like
Watson.
Mike Ditka giving his entire draft away for Ricky Williams.
And if you're Houston, you cannot afford to have another trade that makes you look like an idiot.
That's true.
Can't afford to do it a third time because you already had 2 drafts that made you look terrible. You can't afford a third, so you better look for as high of a draft, a return as you can get for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson.
That's right. Can you say draft picks? There you go.
Good job.
That's right. Addie girl put it in there. That's for sure. This is my granddaughter Addie here. Say hi. Hi, Addie.
Hello.
So yeah, because apparently she wanted Pop. So, and you're absolutely right about that. And here's the other thing: when you're talking about the Houston Texans, when it comes to Deshaun Watson, if they play it right, with that one trade, they can take themselves from laughing stock to actual contender in no time. It's just, will they be smart enough to get the job done? I don't know if they are. But the thing is, though, is that it all determines on what actually happens, because those are some serious ass charges he's got on him.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. And we're going to talk about charges and all that in a second, but I did want to bring up Jackson Law's buddy got the franchise tag on him. Mike Gesicki.
Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Penn
got the
State guy.
franchise tag on him.
Hey,
I like that guy.
Hey,
Good tight end.
I'm cool with it. I think, just if we can mention this just real quickly, because the other person that Dolphin fans were talking about was Emmanuel Ogba as the other guy to franchise tag. I think you can get him on a bit of a cheaper long-term deal, less than $10 million or around that on a longer term, which is it would have been about the same either way. Because if we didn't tag Gesicki was probably going to end up walking and get paid
Elsewhere.
a lot
He's
more
going to get paid.
than what we would be comfortable with giving him right now. So I'm fine with him getting the franchise tag. I'm actually happy about that, because I think we have a better chance at negotiating with Ogba than we do.
Because I think honestly,
Gesicki.
I think Gesicki. Gesicki sticks around. I think he sticks around as long as. I think a lot is going to determine what this season is going to look like, as far as with this new head coach. And honestly, I think that your Dolphins are going to be in for a world of pain, because
give me Allen Robinson, a combination of Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, and Treylon Burks, and I'm a happy man. Give me two of those three.
You know why? You know why I don't see. I don't see a lot of that happening.
See, he didn't have a great combine. Treylon Burks didn't have a great combine. He could slide. He could be there at what is it, 30? I think they have.
He didn't have a great combine, but he has fantastic tape.
He does.
His tape is amazing. That kid's
it's
burner,
beautiful.
Man. And I mean, he's fast. He's big. He's an athlete, dude.
Thing is, though, is that this Dolphins team is gonna be a bleep show this season. Mike McDaniel, I seriously think that the way he handled his initial press conferences and some of the things he said, I think that a lot of the guys in that locker room are going to have already rolled their eyes at him, and he's going to have to do a lot to sort of prove himself.
His humor is different. He's got dry humor.
Very dry.
That's what I've noticed.
It's not even just the dry humor.
Because he was saying like a bunch of cliches, and then Rich Eisen is just like cheering, like, because Rich Eisen's at the because he's just saying all these cliches just to be goofy. He's got dry humor. He's gonna take some getting used to, but I think
a big part of it though is the way he addressed certain questions that were asked, and how he sort of went outside of his way to not sort of talk about who he is. I think that he's going to have to show something to the guys in that locker room. He's really going to have to. And honestly, I don't know Mike McDaniel. I know nothing about the man. I feel like he's probably in a really, really, really crap situation. He's in a bad situation.
He is.
Because of what's going on with the Brian Flores lawsuit and everything. He's not in a good situation. But I think that him coming in trying to play things, straight line, mellow yellow, I don't know how that works in that locker room.
His biggest hill to climb as the head coach of the Dolphins is being the head coach of the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Walking into that organization with everything that's surrounding it right now, you mentioned the Brian Flores lawsuit. What happens to Stephen Ross if those allegations that Brian Flores said about Stephen Ross are even remotely true? Let's say they can even remotely be proven. What happens there? There's a lot swirling over this organization.
I've got more on that when we talk about Calvin Ridley.
And it becomes a big problem when you walk into the situation. Not to mention the fact a lot of guys in that locker room were not very happy when they found out Brian Flores had been fired. So you got a bunch of guys who aren't happy that now Mike McDaniel has to win over walking in because he ain't the old dude. There's a lot there that has to work itself out before they even step on the field. It's nothing against Mike McDaniel. What's the situation that he's dropped himself in?
You mentioned that people were unhappy. It's really funny. The people that were the most outspoken, they were all defensive players. None of the offensive players said anything.
And honestly, does that team get anywhere it did last season without that defense?
No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. No.
I'd argue it doesn't.
So
I just thought it was funny.
So
it is interesting though.
Let's talk a little bit about Calvin Ridley before we go to our break. I know we're going to be a little bit over, but you know what?
Us over? No,
never.
So Calvin Ridley has been suspended indefinitely through minimum the 2022 season for placing bets during a 5-day period in 2021 when he had walked away from the team. Now this guy, So you want to talk about now? He even said, "I only bet $1,500." Man, that $1,500 bet done cost you a couple mil, bruh.
11 mil.
11 mil to be
that's
exact.
8 figures, bruh.
Now, you want to talk about... Now, here's my issue with this. The NFL is all about talking about gambling and blah, blah, blah. They're in the sports gambling. They're in the sports betting thing. The guy wasn't with the team. He stepped away from the team. This is not Pete Rose managing the game that he bet on. The man stepped away from the game for
He was on FanDuel in Florida.
Yeah. And you want to talk about going through a lot of stuff just to catch him. This
it's like a Big Brother thing going on where there's like this secret organization that's spying on the players that sports books report to if a player is betting on games. That was probably the most shocking thing I discovered.
He's the first one, because back when there were still bookies, you know that some of these guys were placing some bets. You know they were. Especially before these contracts were getting huge like they started doing in the 90s.
Here's what I'll say about it. I find it rather ironic is the word that I'll use.
I was going to say winky dink.
I find it rather ironic, and I will use my words delicately here. Given the newfound partnership that the NFL has with sportsbooks, and each individual franchise has their own local sportsbook that's a sponsor of said team. We also have a family in ownership who's, if you believe the legend to how this all started, and I'm using my words delicately here, if you believe the legend that winnings from a certain event that was bet on helped pay for a charter of the beginning of a franchise, if you're believing that legend, this is a whole other layer of irony. I'm not going to say which franchise it is. I think you guys already know. But I will say this much. I just find a lot of this to be very ironic in how it's laying itself out and how Calvin Ridley seems to be the guy du jour who's become the poster child of this.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the truth. It's really, really... It's just it's mind-boggling that you're seriously just going to get this guy. Like,
especially
you're going to single this guy out.
It's not just the fact that, and yes, I agree with just the high push for gambling in 2022. It's not just in the NFL. It is every professional sport. Every professional sport.
And in college sports.
And in college sports. Yes, I'm starting to see that. I am seeing that.
And that's where it should be the most shady.
I went to a Sun Belt Conference basketball game, final home game of the men's for Arkansas State University, and they had an ad in an arena that sits like 9,000 people, had an ad in there on the scorer's table for an upcoming sports book
in Jonesboro?
You could sign up in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
What?
A brand new sports book that is coming to Jonesboro, Arkansas. So
Bryan,
it's getting the gambling's getting out of hand.
Bryan, there's a running joke in the state of Arkansas. Jackson, if I'm lying, you can check me on this. The running joke is that the best thing to do in Jonesboro is go to Memphis.
Yes.
That's the running joke.
That is it.
In the state of Arkansas about Jonesboro. So the fact that they're advertising a sports book in Jonesboro, Arkansas, that's mind-blowing.
No, you see, this is the thing. If you live in the rural area in Northeast Arkansas, Jonesboro is where you go to. If you live in like the Jonesboro or Paragould region where it's a bit bigger, you go to Memphis. That's where you go. So
I just won't be.
You are 100%. You are 100% correct.
Arkansas,
the idea of being in Arkansas
frightens the hell out of me.
Bro, I'll take you to Fayetteville. We'll go to Fayetteville. We'll go to Bentonville. I'll show you Walmart headquarters. I'll take you to Sushi King.
That's the best part of the state over there.
Right. We'll go to the Catfish Hole down in Fayetteville. We'll go to Sassy's Barbecue. I got you. We'll make it happen.
But
all right, cool.
There's the whole gambling aspect and the push for gambling and shoving it down everyone's throat, because it's every league has a partnership, every team has a partnership, and like we were just joking about, even freaking Arkansas State University is having a partnership with a sport belt, a Sun Belt Conference team. Is getting a partnership with a sports book for a small town like what Jonesboro is, relatively speaking. It's big for Arkansas. It's small for literally the rest of the United States. But the length of the suspension, a full season, at minimum a full season, he cannot apply for reinstatement until next February.
That's insane.
At the earliest. Cannot apply for reinstatement.
He got screwed really
and
hard.
It blows my mind when he gets banned for a year for that. Ray Rice
got 2 games.
Roger Goodell saw the video of him laying out his girlfriend in an elevator and gave him
laying out
games.
Dude, don't
Adrian Peterson.
beat the hell out of his kid.
Felony child abuse charges, 6 games.
Greg Hardy,
Elliott, 6 game for hitting.
Greg Hardy,
10 games. Yes.
And who's the other guy that kept throwing his girlfriend on a bag of guns? I think he played for the 49ers, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. I know exactly who you mean.
How about this? You know, he's getting suspended for a full season. Okay. You know who else got suspended for a full season? Dante Stallworth. You know what he did?
Killed a guy.
No, vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah, he was
the guy with a car.
Dude, Dante Stallworth is the Vince Neil of the NFL. Okay.
If you want to get technical, Henry Ruggs also
Ruggs
is actually hasn't been suspended. Technically,
he hasn't been suspended. It's a whole other story.
Yeah,
it's a whole other story.
But I mean, dude, there was video of Ray Rice, and he didn't just lay his woman out. Homeboy full on threw a right that hit her so hard she rebounded off of the wall. It was like she got punched out of the elevator. Yeah. And then just dragged her out the elevator like this was Street Fighter.
Mixon, just to name 2 others.
Yeah.
I thought Molly Karam today on I believe it was on First Take. I thought she put a very interesting kind of commentary on it. She said that in the day and age that we live in, the safety and security of women and children should not be outweighed by the mere impropriety of the integrity of the game.
Right.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly because you guys just laid out every bit of evidence as to why none of this makes sense. And I thought Molly Karam laid that out very delicately, but also very accurately.
And when you talk about the integrity of the game, this is what gets me really fired up. The integrity of the game. Let's look at the Snyders in Washington, the shit that's going on with Washington. Okay. That you mean to tell me that betting $1,500 on 3 separate parlays for teams, including yes, he bet on his team, but he bet in favor of his team, is proven that he had bet in favor of his team when he wasn't even with the team. He was in Florida betting. That is more detrimental to the league than parading cheerleaders around naked or using racial slurs in emails.
And they got rid of Jerry Richardson in Carolina for less, by the way.
Exactly.
Not to mention the fact that once again, Colin Kaepernick is still out of the league.
Talking about Miami, Stephen Ross is involving money. He is supposedly offering Brian Flores money to tank. That is not more detrimental to the game. That doesn't damage the shield more, because the whole point of the NFL is to protect the shield. That's what the commissioner does. That's the motto. That's why they suspend players as much as they do. That's why Josh Gordon he was out of the NFL for 6 seasons because he kept smoking weed. That's why Ricky Williams left. It's all about to protect the league, to protect the shield. But yet Stephen Ross still has his team, even though
Dan Snyder still has his team.
I have no other choice but to believe Brian Flores, because everything else he said has been true so far, that he is offering to pay 100 G's a game to throw games, to tank,
I'm clapping,
to lose.
And Brian Flores,
and nothing happens. And God knows what else has been going on behind the scenes that every single other owner and the commissioner and people in the front office know.
You know what?
And
let me take you back 10 years before everything with concussions came out. They knew what these concussions were going on with people, and you know what? They said nothing. Matter of fact, let's even look at, for a second, I'm going to take you even further back. Remember in Any Given Sunday? And they were going to sit there and they were going to try to keep Shark in, try to keep Cap out, and blah, 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 blah. Dude, Oliver Stone didn't just pull that storyline out of a hat. He put that in the movie because things like that were actually happening. The NFL, I'm sorry, and there's going to be someone that's going to hear this, and they're going to be like, oh, you can't say that. I'm saying it. The NFL is a freaking meat market. We sit there for this game that we love. It is a meat market. The combine is a meat market. These kids are being touted out there to show off for these bosses, so that then they will go and play a sport for the next 5 to 20 years of their lives to ensure they have some financial security. And some people sit there and say, oh, but you're getting a lot of money to put on it, blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you that Jerry Rice, for all the money that he made playing in the NFL, would give up a nice chunk of that money to wake up with zero pain. I guarantee you, Joe Theismann, who's you want to talk about a man that's probably got arthritis on top of arthritis on top of arthritis. If you're not old enough to remember what Joe Theismann gave to this game, go look at that game back in 1982. 81, 82, when Lawrence Taylor was still a rookie. And he snapped Joe Theismann's leg in half.
Alex Smith almost died.
Alex Smith almost lost his leg and his
died.
life. The same damn break, practically, that Joe Theismann suffered.
And I'll do you another one. I'm throwing it back to your era, Brian. I'm throwing it back to the 80s. This is something I watched. It involved the 85 Bears. It involved the 85
That's my era
Bears.
too.
I know. I'm throwing it back. I'm throwing it back to both of you guys.
He's throwing us under the bus.
Opioid and substance abuse from NFL teams. That's because I was having this discussion with my dad because he was
in
he
the
was talking
90s
about
too.
In the 90s
too.
Yes. 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
We let Brett Favre off the hook.
Brett Favre
so smoothly,
so often let off the hook.
We were so smooth in letting him off the hook when he was addicted to painkillers.
Yeah. But
And one of those opiate company, the family and company that found out OxyContin, they only have to pay $6 billion. All they did was murder millions of people.
Yeah. So I need to watch the video because it's a documentary, and my dad was telling me about it because he grew up 70s, 80s, 90s, was big into the NFL. He was watching it. It's talking about the 85 Bears, about how I forgot who it was, but had a lacerated kidney on a play that happened. It was part of the Bears defense, but he goes to the trainer and he's just like, "Oh, it's just a bruise. Go back out there and play." He's playing. He's not feeling well. Everyone tells him to go leave. He goes to a tent. He goes to pee. He's peeing blood. Goes to the hospital. The bottom of his kidney has been ripped off.
Small little historical note: that list of 9 teams I told you that won Super Bowls with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, the 85 Bears is one of them too.
Yeah,
throwing that out there
because Jim McMahon was not also like.
And then they're also talking about how every summer players were in rehab because they would just get shots of opioids constantly. They had major fractures, broken bones,
Jim
and they're
McMahon.
just like, it's bruises.
That was Jim McMahon that had the lacerated kidney.
Jim McMahon.
Ooh. And he played quarterback. Good God.
Yes.
It's just shut up, take
Brian,
the drugs,
just
and
play.
go and go play. And then they're
Why do you think
summers in rehab?
Who was Jim McMahon's backup that season?
Oh my God! Who
you should know this one. Former Pittsburgh quarterback. You should know this.
Oh my God!
Took one of the worst hits we've ever seen on tape in a game.
Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Kent Graham. Was it Kent Graham?
No, before Kent Graham.
Pre-Kent Graham.
Pre-Kent Graham.
Oh man.
I'll give you one more shot at it, and I'll shut up.
All right. Let me think on it. I'm not going to use Google. Continue your point, Jackson. I'm going to keep.
Oh no.
Okay. You rack your brain while Jackson.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain
because Jackson was on a roll, and I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to keep saying because my dad and I, we were talking about it, and I come from a fairly conservative family, so back in the early 2000s, my dad's watching the Dolphins. He's very mad at Ricky Williams for walking away from Miami for smoking weed. But in this documentary, he's talking about how he did not want to get addicted like all the other players in the league were to these opioids. So he smoked weed.
And he was very smart.
Didn't get addicted, and the pain went away, and he was able to play football.
Ryan Clark mentioned that too. He said more than half of the guys in that league actually do smoke weed, and they do it as a painkiller to avoid being stuck on opiates. Ryan Clark admitted to that. So Ricky Williams is not the only one.
My dad, through me, apologized to Ricky Williams. He's like, "I'm sorry I ever thought about you in a negative light for walking away from football to smoke weed. I thought you were just a pothead. No, you just didn't want to be addicted to painkillers. And I guess, better smoke weed than be addicted to opioids and in rehab every few months."
Exactly.
It stands to reason. That's why medical marijuana is a thing now, because they're realizing, oh, wait, there's worse options.
Right. Exactly.
You figure it out yet, Brian?
No, you stumped me. You stumped me.
Mike Tomczak.
I really, you know what? I almost said Mike Tomczak. it was right there. It was either going to be Neil O'Donnell, Bubby Brister, or Mike Tomczak.
Mike
And I
Tomczak was
I
on
remember
that team.
Tomczak was on the Bears. I remember when Tomczak came to the Steelers, I got all excited. I was like, he played for the Bears. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and that's why he's on the Steelers now. So yeah, it's insane. The NFL is a joke. The only reason why I like the NFL is it's a train wreck that I want to just ignore it and be done with it. I heard some of the guys here on local Pittsburgh radio say, if as many people stop watching the NFL as they said they would, but you're not. You know, there are a lot of people that have stuck to their laurels and stopped watching the NFL over Colin Kaepernick. I'm not one of them because I do love my Steelers, but I'll tell you the truth. My love for the game is not what it used to be. Let's take a quick break. I want to talk some baseball because there's a lot going on. I'm not happy with some of these changes. Rob Manfred and the MLB as a whole, you know what? I've about had enough of them. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. But we'll talk about that. We're going to be on our final segment here on the Tanndemonium Sports Show. We're broadcasting live here on Twitch, on our Twitch channel here, Vendetta Sports Media's own, twitch.tv/Vendetta Sports Media. We'll be back for our final segment.
The following is brought to you in partnership by Symbol. Symbol is a new sports marketplace where you can trade shares of professional teams like stocks. You love sports. You interested in fantasy sports without the weekly annoyance of fantasy league upkeep? Then Symbol's the app for you. With Symbol, fantasy sports is going to a whole other level. How it works is simple. You buy Symbol shares for your favorite sim teams on the app. When your sim team wins, you get automatic cash deposits, and you don't lose any money when they lose. That's it. So if you follow trends across football, basketball, and baseball, and you think your team is a sleeper, simply invest in your favorite sim teams on Symbol and watch your virtual portfolio prove you right or wrong. And if you want to get in on the action right away, Vendetta Sports Media's got you covered. Go to symbol.app/Vendetta and use our exclusive promo code Vendetta, and you'll get a $10 bonus when making your first deposit. Symbol, taking fantasy sports to a whole other level.
I just saw something absolutely hilarious, and I have to share this meme. It says, and I have to give a shout out to my sister and writing partner, Kendra Souter, for sharing this over on the Facebook. She goes, I am completely uninterested in hearing people who drive $70,000 trucks that get 15 miles to the gallon complain about the price of gas. I'm just saying. Now, granted, I'm driving a Nissan SUV, but I get pretty good miles per gallon on that bad boy.
As do I on my Infinity SUV. But proceed.
I still start asking around, yo, when is Nissan gonna come up with a either an electric or a hybrid SUV? Because this is gonna hurt.
Good question.
Hopefully soon. But all right, let's talk baseball. And I'm actually kind of disappointed that Trey isn't in the comments because he's always whining. Why don't you guys talk about baseball? Because there's nothing to talk about when it comes to baseball, Trey. Well, now there is. So, for one, let's look at this. So multiple MLB teams are asking the league to cancel the Rule 5 draft. Now, the Rule 5 draft is they can select players who aren't on a 40-man roster and pay about $100,000 of their rights, but they have to keep them on their 26-man major league roster for the entire season. The Rule 5 draft, now, number one, here's the thing with Major League Baseball. And a lot of folks that I hear talking about, why does Major League, they have a regular draft and they have the Rule 5 draft and blah, blah, blah. Look, Major League Baseball, 162 games. You got to have a lot of dudes on reserve, especially if your MLB roster is only about 26 dudes.
There's a reason why there's a 40-man.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's a 40-man toward the end of the year. And there's a reason why they have so many different tiers. Those different tiers of single A, double A, and triple A, that's not just for guys who aren't ready for prime time.
Hey.
That's for them to dip into player pools because 162 games, that's a lot of...
Hey, going to see Memphis Redbird games, you see a lot of MLB quality players play from just across with the Redbirds and across the league. I think there's at least 4 of the starters on the Cardinals that I've seen at Redbirds game, and it's just cool to see them in a tiny area.
I can probably tell you like a half dozen guys maybe playing with the Cardinals now that I saw play for Springfield when they were in Double A, and I was covering the Northwest Arkansas Naturals in the Royal system. But that's St. Louis, man. They for some odd reason they always have a guy. But they always have a dude on deck.
And that's why the farm system and all that is set up in Major League Baseball, because every team can essentially have a guy. Now
the Cardinals have like a dozen, seriously.
Yeah, the Cardinals just have dudes.
They kill me.
I don't get it. I don't know where they get them. I honestly don't know where they find them at.
Seriously, somebody will get hurt, somebody will get traded. Like, all right, call up the kid from Memphis. Let's go. And they got a guy on deck ready to go, and he just comes and he balls out. I'm like, how do they do that? They do it all the time.
It's why they are in the World Series. It feels like at least once a decade, once or twice a decade.
I'm telling you, man, the Cardinals. If there's an organization that you want to be like over time, just the ability to build a franchise and keep that same quality of play and building and having that kind of perpetual opportunity to win every year, it might be the Cardinals for me. Because it's not just like this is a 5 to 10 year thing. This is a decades long thing. Doing this 20, 30 years. It's really appalling.
I will say the integrity of the organization kind of took a hit with the whole hacking of the Houston Astros.
It did.
But
this is true.
Other than that, everyone's forgotten about that. Everyone's forgotten about that. So we can.
I have it, but you're not wrong.
That's just one thing that's changing. They're also changing the shift. They're about to, from what I understand, Josh, and you could probably give me a better insight on this. Did I read correctly somewhere that they're looking to ban the bunt?
I have not seen anything about that, but I have seen talk about pitch clocks, which I think is probably 4 or 5 years running late here because it's 2022. I was covering college baseball 10 years ago, and in SEC games, and Jackson, back me up on this if I'm correct or wrong. In SEC games, there's a pitch clock.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's going to be. I think MLB's late on that.
They're looking for 14-second pitch clock with empty bases. 19 seconds.
Trade today or yesterday. Or it was like yesterday or the day before when a lot of this news came out about stuff that could potentially be implemented, if we have an MLB season this year. He was talking about when he worked with the Iron Pigs. I forget what organization that's a part of.
Oh, that's Philly, Lehigh Valley.
Yeah. He said that they were using pitch clocks.
Wouldn't shock me.
So, I mean, already the minor leagues have been testing with it. It's the majors. They're stuck still in the 70s.
I really well see.
I've been saying this for years, Jackson. There's no sport that's more that tries harder to keep old men happy than Major League Baseball.
Now here's the thing: when you say that baseball is they're stuck in the 70s, I seriously think 40s through into the mid 90s. That for me was the golden age of baseball. I still love but the thing is that those games also that they moved because that they weren't, a lot of those pitchers weren't really stalling. It didn't start becoming a stalling tactic until we got into the mid 90s when the home runs were coming. That's crazy.
That and a whole bunch of different TV production started.
And TV production.
Primetime games became a thing because remember, most of the games were played in the daytime. Night games became a thing. More televised games in the evenings, sponsorship, in-game entertainment, all that. The whole thing bogs the whole thing down. And Jackson talked about being stuck in the 70s. I made this point a couple weekends ago on 93.7 The Fan on my weekend show. They are finally going along with the DH being universal. The American League first adopted that in 1973. That means baseball went for nearly 50 years with neither side of the league having uniform rules because of a personnel disagreement.
But see,
think about that.
But see, I like that
50-year personnel
I
argument.
like that one league has a DH and one doesn't.
Brian,
no. I like
no other professional sport in the world.
Here's why I like
half
it.
The league and rules for the other half.
Here's why I like
makes
it.
No sense.
Because let me explain to you why I like it. Because us growing up in a National League town, we see baseball played in a certain way. Now, whenever I would go to Chicago and be on the South Side, it just made it feel different. And I just enjoyed it. I just
I'm
liked
sorry,
the
Bryan.
differences.
Don't get me wrong. I was a kid that grew up in Pittsburgh, and I was a huge fan of the Bash Brother A's, and I thought it was awesome that they had a DH. And I thought it was weird that the Pirates didn't have one. I cannot endorse a professional league that literally made 11 figures last year. Literally made 11 figures. And it had a 50-year personnel argument about keeping the league, keeping the rules.
I mean, hey, listen.
It's like telling half the NHL, you guys can have an extra attacker to have 6 skaters, but the other conference, you have to keep your goaltender on the ice.
Well,
it's the same thing.
But only reason why I'll disagree and say that it's not is because, look, a pitcher batting is one, like, I just don't see it because we had a lot of good hitting pitchers.
Brian,
we had a few good hitting pitchers. An extra attacker is totally different than having a substitute hitter. It's different.
How? It's all offensively based because it's having another skater as opposed to a goaltender. It's the same thing. You have another hitter as opposed to a pitcher.
If you said having an extra skater on top, now I took it as you're saying having an extra skater on top.
I said instead of having a goaltender,
okay.
That's an extra attacker instead of a goaltender. Hockey fans know what I mean when I'm talking about that. And here's the coup de grace. Here, the dumbest argument I hear about keeping pitchers hitting on one side of the league is, oh, well then, because the strategy and everything, and then you're using the double switch. Wait. Your justification for keeping pitchers hitting in one half of MLB is the use of a rule that is used to keep pitchers from hitting. What?
That is ridiculous.
Stupid.
That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Jackson, you see where I'm going with this. This is the dumbest argument.
That is a dumb argument.
Let's keep pitchers hitting for half the game in half of the league so pitchers don't have to hit in the latter half of the game. Stupidest thing I ever heard.
I just like the fact that one league just sort of felt. Now, granted, a lot of that sort of that nuance, that little bit that made it something special has basically been watered down since we've been doing interleague play. Because here's the thing, I really like the fact that I love back in the day when the NL just played the NL, the AL played the AL, and they only met twice a year. I liked that. Brian, now you're doing interleague, so now there's really no point anymore.
Brian,
so
you know what
it's
else watered it down? You know what else watered it down?
What?
Every other league that plays baseball. Literally every other league at every other level, whether it's every other professional level around the world, whether it is college baseball. Even in their own minor leagues, Brian, most of the teams use DHs in the minors.
That's true.
In college baseball, when pitchers are hitting, they usually don't hit the day that they're pitching. And Jackson, once again, back me up on this. If you got a good hitting pitcher, when he hits on his days when he's not pitching, and he's usually, wait for it, he's usually the DH.
Yep.
They don't even enforce it that much in college. Travel teams coming up with youth baseball. High school teams. Brian, Shinley High School, my senior year, you know what I was? I was the DH for the worst hitter in the starting lineup. Every level of baseball before you get to the National League pretty much discourages pitchers from hitting.
Yep.
And now you show up in the National League, now you got to hit now. It makes no sense. Nothing feeds into it to perpetuate it, to keep it moving. And literally every other organization that plays baseball doesn't really like pitchers hitting. Doesn't make any sense.
When I played travel baseball, I remember we played in one tournament that did allow us to have a DH if we wanted to. They said that we could do either or. It was totally up to us. We just had to let the umpire know beforehand. And we always went with the DH. That was our thing, because in like the leagues that we played in, the pitchers had to hit, and we hated that. It sucked.
And what's one of the main reasons why a lot of youth coaches are doing that now? Because A, they don't want their pitchers to get hurt, and B, that's a roster spot they can actually use towards somebody else to actually get in. If they got a hitter on the bench that might not be a great fielder, now that kid can hit, gives them an advantage in the lineup. I say that because that's what our team did in high school, Brian. Our worst hitter in the field, I DH'd for that guy. That's why I know this stuff. People keep making this case. It's always been this way. For the record, the dumbest excuse
it hasn't always. Just because it's always been that way. Because you know what? If I heard someone try to tell me, well, it's always been that way. Yeah, up until a certain amount of time, there were always slaves in America too. Not Brian, a good argument.
If we go off everything because it's always been that way, we would not be talking on this particular show right now.
No, we would not. You know what? Have either of you guys played Out of the Park Baseball, that simulation game? Have you played that?
No.
I have it on the current computer that I'm using.
I'm seriously contemplating picking up Out of the Park Baseball 22 because it's only $20 right now.
I have 21. I will probably buy 22 at some point.
Yeah,
I might even buy it tonight. You might have convinced me.
I think I have 20. But and I'll tell you the truth. When I was playing that, dude, I was sitting here like playing that a lot, and I'm like, why am I so into this? This is so much.
Yeah, I have 22. I have 22 on my on this computer that I'm using. Yeah, they were always a year ahead. They're like a MVP baseball used to be. They're always a year ahead with the number. So it'd be 23 this year. I'll probably buy it.
Yeah, I might get 22 now just because.
It's pretty good. I love it.
Yeah. All right. I think I might pick it up. It's only $20. I think I might pick that up. But
it's a good deal, man. It's a fun game to play. You can. My favorite thing about it, before we get way off topic, you can switch rules around. You can have everything be streamlined. You can incorporate expansion teams. It is
in 22.
Yes,
I'm putting a second Pittsburgh team in.
I incorporated a team from Vegas.
Nice.
And I'm having the time of my life.
Have you played the Hockey Manager one?
I have not. I know a couple of friends of mine that have the Hockey Manager.
I've always wanted to do the Football Manager one. It's called Football Manager, but it's soccer.
I know a couple guys that do the Football Manager one too. They love that, man. They get into it. They're serious.
I might try doing that because I know it's on the Xbox one. It's on Xbox. You can stream. It's the Xbox Cloud Gaming. So I might try that one too.
But granted, none of those guys are born in the States. They're all from other countries, but they're huge soccer fans, and they play the Football Manager. They're all about it.
I started streaming the Doom again because I'm gonna start playing Doom again. I don't know why. I'm not a super big first person shooter guy, but I'm starting to feel Doom again because that gets a little rugged. I'm kind of excited about that with the way things are going on in the world right now. It's not going to surprise me if I have to put on my Doom Killer armor and start first person shooting people. I'm
sorry, the movie with The Rock ruined Doom for me. And I'm a Rock fan. Like, yeah, I'm one of the millions and millions.
It was bad.
In that movie,
it was bad.
It killed it.
It's really bad.
It killed Doom for me.
All right. So now, real quick, I'm going to give you guys an option. Do you guys want to do some gaming before we close out, or do you want to talk Jeannie Buss putting LeBron in his place?
Ooh, see, now you're messing with me because as a Laker fan, I've kind of sworn myself off of talking about the Lakers. As of right now, I consider the Lakers to be Bruno, and we don't talk about Bruno, or like Encanto fans, if you know, you know. Yep. But let's get into it so I can kind of have this catharsis for my own mental.
All right, so apparently there was a meeting between Jeannie Buss and the Lakers ownership and LeBron and his crew. And this was over All-Star Weekend. And apparently Jeannie Buss has just about had enough of LeBron James. And this is why I'm not a LeBron James. This is some of the stuff that's why I'm not really a LeBron James fan. I never have been. Now, granted, an argument can be made. Well, Bryan, you say that you're not a fan of the NBA product now. You prefer the golden age in your mind of the NBA. Absolutely correct. I'm not a fan of guys that sit there and try to put together super teams. I like back in the day, Jordan wasn't trying to get guys on his team. Even they tried to say, well, you know, Dennis Rodman is great, but we're gonna have to get Michael to sign off on that one. Might not happen. Jordan wasn't trying to be GM. He wanted his team.
In fairness, he had a guy doing it for him. Is your point?
Like, right.
He wasn't doing it himself. He had a guy doing it for him.
Right. He let Krause do his job, and he might have given some input, but he stayed out of it. Now, with that being said, LeBron James, everywhere he's been in his NBA tenure, has played GM. Which is why your Lakers are in the position that they're in now. And he apparently wanted them to make a move to get rid of Russell Westbrook to get John Wall. And then when he wasn't getting his way, he was kind of being a little bit diva-ish about it. Well, Jeannie Buss basically said, you know what? No. We're done with this.
Let me put this into perspective for people when it comes to the Lakers.
We did lose Jackson, by the way. So
I did notice that we lost Jackson. let me put this in perspective and just how the Buss family has done business over the years, and more particularly Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss, when the Lakers brought Lonzo Ball in, pretty much went up to LeVar Ball and was like, "You're going to sit over here with the parents. You're going to keep your mouth shut. You ain't going to be talking to coaches. You ain't going to be talking about what we do as far as personnel. You are a parent of a player, and that is all you are." And LeVar didn't make he didn't make no issues.
After LeVar knew his place. He knew his place.
I will say this also. Jeannie Buss muscled her own brother out of the front office of the organization.
Jeannie Buss is Stephanie McMahon.
I was about to say she WWE'd her own brother. So look, this is what we talk about with Jeannie Buss. I don't know why people think Jeannie Buss won't go toe-to-toe with LeBron. If she's willing to tell her own family, get to stepping, they really think she won't do that with LeBron?
Matter of fact, you know who Jeannie Buss is? Christina Pagliacci from Any Given Sunday. She don't care. She is cutthroat because it's about what you are bringing into her franchise.
Jeannie Buss took a picture pretty much almost naked with 2 basketballs covering her chest, and it was in a magazine. She fears nothing. She fears absolutely nothing in this game or anybody that could be a part of this game. She fears nothing, and she has no reason to fear anybody. So for anyone to think that they can walk into the Los Angeles Lakers of all organizations and tell a member of the Buss family what they're going to do, they're sadly mistaken. And this is something that I heard the other day, and I'm like, and I'm already disenchanted with the Lakers as is. But Colin Cowherd said this, and I had to go back and verify it. I'm like, holy crap, this is true. You know, Lakers only had 2 winning seasons in the last 9 years.
What?
They've had losing seasons in 7 of the last 9 years. That means they've only made the playoffs twice in 7 of the last 9 seasons.
Wow.
This is what we're talking about with this franchise. That's why people are frustrated. That's why you have fans at home games chirping at LeBron. Fans at home games chirping at guys on the bench. Now, I'm going to set this aside because this should not be cool. What Russell Westbrook and his wife and family are dealing with, that is crossing the line. Yeah. I do not condone that, and I think people have gotten way too entitled and have gotten way too familiar with what they say to players and their families. That is taking it way too far.
Right. Now, here's the thing. When I first saw that come up, all I thought was that they were just calling him Westbrook, and I quote tweeted it. Bad. I quote tweeted it and just said, "Well, put the ball in the hoop then." No, I didn't realize that they were going after his wife.
His wife and family have gotten death threats and all kinds of stuff, and that's just unacceptable.
That's beyond unacceptable.
It comes to the point where some of this other stuff, though, when home fans are chirping LeBron and guys on the court and guys on the bench and they're getting upset, you know what? You brought this on yourself. There was a point when I used to defend LeBron. I'm like, you know what? He kind of catches it at every guard, catches it at every turn. He's kind of a target. But at the same time, when you assume all this responsibility and trying to put all these things in place, you also assume the backlash that comes with it. So you got to be willing to take the slings and arrows that come with it, because if you're the guy trying to make all the moves behind the scenes, you got to be willing to stand up publicly and take some of the heat.
You better take the good that comes with the bad.
And if you think you're going to walk into a room with Jeannie Buss and tell her how she's going to do her business after she 86 her own brother, good luck.
And the thing is, especially I think what really got her under her skin when he tried to say, well, whoever picks up Bronny, that's what and she's like, whoa. You're here for another couple years, player. What do you think you doing? You under this contract, and you going to play it out, and you going to play it out correct. And here's the thing. I'm all for our people taking ownership of their brands and all that. But at the end of the day, when you sign that contract, you're an employee. You are in control of your brand. But you better make sure you come correct on that team that you on.
I feel like the Lakers front office standing up to LeBron, I feel like it's come a little late.
It is way late.
It's way late.
This should have been something that happened in day from day one. I put it in the comment section because I just
I think before you even
see, there it is.
Yeah. She should have taken this stance day one. Absolutely.
Yeah, because we saw the warning signs when Magic stepped aside.
Yeah.
When Magic left and how awkward that situation was. When Magic was like, I'm pulled away, and they kept asking questions. He's like, I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
Remember how awkward that was? We should have known then something was wrong. We should have known something was up.
LeBron.
And you see, you had two perfect scenarios of LeBron's career to where you could have seen like what happens, how you deal with LeBron. There is a way to deal with LeBron and a way not to deal with LeBron. The way not to deal with LeBron is like his first and second stint in Cleveland. 2 stints in Cleveland where they had some success while he was there, especially the second stint where it's all of his dudes that he's bringing in, all these older players. They're getting all this money, signing these massive contracts. They're deep in the luxury tax. Yes, they won a title. Fantastic. It's honestly one of the best titles like in the past decade, 2 decades, especially when you consider who he beat and the level that LeBron was playing at. That was
what they had to do to get there.
Such a fun finals. Still, though, Tristan Thompson got the bag. He did not deserve the bag. There's a lot of people that got bags on that team.
Dellavedova got the bag.
He didn't get the bag from them, but Dellavedova got a bag. Okay?
I mean, good on him for getting paid, but still, and your point's well taken.
Yeah, but he got a lot of dudes' bags elsewhere, but dudes' bags also there, and the Cavs are finally starting to recover. The other way that you deal with LeBron is the way that Pat Riley dealt with LeBron. Pat Riley was not going to put up with LeBron's BS. Pat Riley was going to run the Miami Heat the way that Pat Riley knew how to run an organization because he'd been in the NBA forever.
And you don't argue with Pat Riley.
You do not argue with Pat Riley. And
he's another one, absolutely.
It's that reason why when LeBron left, Miami was still able to be competitive. They were still able to fight for playoff spots. And then a few years later, they actually got back to the finals.
That's very true. And I everything I have said previously with this discussion, I say this as a Laker fan. I have been a Laker fan since the evening of the 96 draft when they traded Vlade Divac for a kid out of Philadelphia named Kobe Bryant. I became a Laker fan that night because he was the top player in PA. And I'm like, the top high school player in PA just went to the Lakers. I'm rooting for the Lakers. Because that was after my freshman year of high school. I believe, Bryan, that was after your junior year.
Yep.
So I was like, the top player in PA just went to the Lakers. I'm all for it. So I've been a fan past 2 decades now, going on 30 years. And from what I have seen, and one of my really good friends, my co-host on the Sunday Morning Grind podcast, Greg Finley, will attest to this. There's times he'll bring up the Lakers, and I'm like, Greg, we don't talk about Bruno. Like that has been – at one point, my wife was just like, you haven't said anything about the Lakers recently. I'm like, honey, the Lakers and Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. She goes, I should have never mentioned Bruno. I'm like, we just don't talk about it. Here's a key example. Now, my barber, whom I've known for going on 20 years now, he's been a Laker fan longer than I have. I'll come in to get my haircut, and up until last week, we didn't talk about the Lakers for a couple months. Like, it was one of us like, man, what's up with the Lakers, man? We get into it. Neither of us would even bring up the conversation because we didn't want to talk about the Lakers. Yeah. Other people come in and be like, hey, what's up with your Lakers? And we're both like, we ain't talking about it. If that's how bad it is for us right now.
Lakers are fight club.
Josh, if you're ever in need of some late night entertainment, okay? I know you guys are an hour ahead of me on the East Coast. Lakers are on the West Coast. So these Twitter spaces, they start kind of late because Lakers games like on the East Coast may not finish till 11 or midnight. But if it's late one night, you can't sleep, you need something to listen to just feel better about yourself. Go join some of these Lakers spaces on Twitter.
I've actually listened to a couple of them, and there were people were just angry.
Oh
and
my gosh!
Good, it's not just me.
Not only do I feel better as a Grizzlies fan, who are playing right now, and I will immediately switch over to TNT to watch them once we are done. But just as a person, it's like, I thank God I am not like having as bad of a life as some of these fans. Okay, you got dudes rapping and singing songs about Russell Westbrook. Yes. You have grown men screaming and in tears because Westbrook had 7 or 8 turnovers in a game. Okay,
Bryan,
it is
like going to one of the Lakers spaces that Jackson's talking about. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel better about the end of the Steelers season. Woo! You know how bad it is. Monday morning after a Steelers loss, Jackson, It might as well. There might as well be a gray cloud hanging over the entire
when the
metropolitan
Steelers
area of
lose.
Pittsburgh.
When the Steelers lose, especially when the season is over. It's
the morning after the end of the season is like the saddest day of the year.
Yeah, it's like
those Twitter Spaces with the Lakers make me feel better.
Wow.
About what happens after the Steelers season's over. That's how Jackson's not wrong. They get ridiculous.
And they do. And this is where I think we really get into some of the stuff about Russell Westbrook, okay? I am not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan in the world.
Nor am I.
Do I think he's a great player? Yeah, I think he's a great player. He averaged a triple-double for a couple years. He's the only person other than the Big O, Oscar Robertson, to do it. Congratulations. Yep. You did it. Your team got like the 6th seed that year that you did it. You were the reason they got the 6th seed, and it was an incredible run. So I'm never going to take that away from him. But as for like winning championships, no, he's not going to be the guy. I'm still going to call him Westbrook because I could build a mansion bigger than any mansion in the world. I could build the Taj Mahal 10 times over with the bricks that he puts up night in and night out at the crypto arena. It's not the Staples Center anymore. It's the crypto arena.
I hated the move when they did it, Jackson. I hated when they did it. I hated the move then.
I
hate it now. I was not a fan of it.
It's just like I am telling you, man. The way that some of these fans are acting in these spaces, it's like their Twitter personalities are now leaking over. Like, you still don't have faces, but you have voices now. And I've been in these Twitter spaces, and there's big people in these Twitter spaces. You've got writers from Bleacher Report. You've got influencers that got millions of followers and are in there. Russell Westbrook's brother is in these spaces that I'm listening to on Twitter, and it gets insane. So obviously everything that's being said in there, I wouldn't be surprised if Russell Westbrook or more people associated with him got burner accounts that are just sitting in there, because there's only about 2,000 people that are in there. I was listening to one yesterday with Richard Jefferson was in there.
Did you guys hear what he said about Gilbert Arenas? That was so cool.
And was dwelling with the plebs in these Lakers spaces.
Dude, Richard Jefferson's absolute murder
of the hell out of Gilbert Arenas.
And the way he did it was like, it was so very like even keeled and very matter of factly. And like, I mean,
he came with receipts. He came with receipts with no sort of fire. He was just, let me explain to you about Gilbert Arenas. And that's why he's trash.
You know what he did with Gilbert Arenas? He did with Gilbert Arenas what every guy does when they're dating a girl and they're meeting their family for the first time. All right, let me tell you something about my uncle. My uncle was crazy. He was locked up for this back in the day. He did this. He was in jail for a while. He might say some stuff that's off the wall. That's just how he is. That's what Richard Jefferson did in about 2 minutes of just completely murdering Gilbert Arenas.
Also, if you want more Richard Jefferson TikTok, that's like that's my secret love is Richard Jefferson TikTok. It is the most hilarious thing on TikTok. He is my favorite person to follow on TikTok. There are some hilarious ones in there.
Oh yeah, like when people make the joke, y'all want to see a dead body? That meme was made for that video.
Actually, you know who else that video was? Who that meme was made for? Dan Abrams. He tried to pull an old okey doke on Uncle Roro, Roland S. Martin, who's one of my big heroes in broadcasting. He brought Roland Martin onto his show because they were talking about defund the police. And he tried to pull up 2 of Roland's tweets that were quote tweets, by the way. And now, number one, they weren't even supposed to have been talking about it to that extent. They pulled an okey doke like 5 minutes before they went on the air. So Roland didn't even have a monitor so he could see what he was referencing. So he asked him when he brings these up, and he goes, and what was the context? Oh, there is no context. And you just saw Roland's face like, oh, okay, we're playing that game. And Dan Abrams since then has doubled down, tripled down, and quadrupled down. Meanwhile, no one is on his side. It's like you want to talk about a dead body. It's Gilbert Arenas, and then there's Dan Abrams. The two of them are the bodies.
I got to meet Roland S. Martin, and I got to watch him speak at an NABJ conference. I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago. And it was honestly, it was one of the coolest experiences, man. And that conference, I heard Roland S. Martin talk. I heard James Brown from CBS talk. I heard Jamel Hill talk. I heard David Aldridge talk. I mean, you're talking some of the heavyweights as far as, the black media goes.
Mm-hmm.
But Roland S. Martin, man, he pretty much broke down how he was able to become his own entity and start pretty much set up his own network and create his own business. Mm-hmm. As a journalist who spends a lot of time out in the field and pretty much do this on the fly in the 21st century. And Roland S. Martin ain't in his 40s. He ain't in his 30s. He ain't in his 20s. Roland S. Martin's been around.
He's 10 years older than me. He's
right.
10 years older than I am.
He's a man who has learned how to evolve in an industry that don't always feel like evolving. We talk about MLB not wanting to evolve. Media can be the same way from time to time.
Absolutely.
And I say this as a guy who's been in the TV industry for 15 years. This is an industry that's not too keen to evolve in, but Roland S. Martin is a guy who has found a way to evolve.
Absolutely.
And is thriving in the middle of it.
And that's why when I come on this show and I say I bring my receipts, I learned that from Uncle Roro and that's why when
my brother loves him because he's an alpha. There's that too.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though? Well, see, I'm not really, I never joined a fraternity at all. So I'm part of the national, the black MBAs or whatever. I can't remember what it's called, but I pay a yearly thing to that. And I was like, that's kind of a fraternity, right? And I was told by my advisor it was. I said, that'll look good on my resume.
Hey,
so
if it's professional and academic like that, that can't be a bad thing.
No, not at all. But the whole point is that when I start getting real, when you went on That Some Cheese, and I was referencing, and I tell these kids when we have our interviews, make sure you come with your receipts. Otherwise, you gonna look stupid. That's where it's coming from. See, some of these young folks, Josh, they don't understand.
It's like a badge of honor for me. Y'all don't understand. Like when I hear you guys talk about that, using me as a reference point, I'm like, me?
Well, apparently somebody tried to blacklist our site because they didn't like how I talked to them when they came at me with their quiz. I was like, did you even watch the whole thing or watch any of this, or did you just spot check go through? Oh, well, no, I watched it all, and I said, there's no way you could have, because how did you miss this? All right, well, I probably didn't put my best foot forward. And I said, so why you think? Lying? So why you lying? It wasn't that hard.
There's an old South Central Californian proverb that says you ain't got a lie to kick it.
That's right.
If you know, you know.
So have either one of you guys, before we go, because we're way over.
Never saw this coming.
Have either of you guys played Elden Ring? I picked it up day
I have not.
I've been wanting to play it. I have.
Dude, that game is so freaking hard. I swear, if dying in that game was an Olympic event, I'm taking the platinum.
All I know about Elden Ring is that I saw you tweet about it, and I saw Evil Uno from the Dark Order in AEW. He endorsed it on a video with Brandon Cutler, I want to say.
I love the game. It's
in
fun.
A match.
The landscape is beautiful. The detail is amazing.
And the story was written by
George R. R. Martin was involved in the story.
Yeah.
So it's so that was the selling point for me. But
did they finish the story?
Yes, the story is finished.
Finished.
And apparently, it's a Japanese company, so the story's definitely finished.
Okay, good.
And apparently the game is supposed to have over 100 hours of just story.
My God!
So I'll take it.
But the reason why it takes so much time to beat is because you're dying 40 times per boss. So you got to go grind to come back.
So honestly, I'm seriously about to just restart the whole game. Because I also just picked up WWE 2022.
If there's a game that will make me get a new gen console before NCAA is complete, it might be WWE 2K22.
And you want to know what? I did even shell out for the NWO for Life edition.
Of course you did.
So
of course you did.
But of course I'm mad because my man Diamond Dallas Page isn't in the game.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, because he's with AEW. He's with AEW. Yeah. Well, not he appeared in AEW. He works with AEW, and he does a lot of their video packaging.
Now, is he in the AEW game? Is the question.
That would be interesting.
Because they do have I want to say they have the mobile game for AEW.
Honestly, I tried playing the mobile game. I couldn't get into it.
I've never even tried.
It was tough.
I've never even tried.
It's not fun. You know what? Talking about mobile games, here BitLife is supposed to have a movie star update coming where now one of your jobs you can become like a movie star, but they're releasing it as DLC. They're not doing free updates no more. Now it's going to be DLC. It's going to be $2 for it. Cats on Twitter are pissed. Man, I'm a Blitzen. I shouldn't have to pay for it. And it was like, so how are they going to keep paying developers, Dopey? None of these companies that allow you to download games for free, they're gonna have to do microtransactions to make money, dude. Mm-hmm. You gotta understand. There's no free lunches. No free lunches. Hey, two things in this world that are 100% obvious: ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. No free lunches. I'm just saying.
You ain't wrong.
All right, we're gonna close it out from that. Make sure you check out Josh on Twitter at Josh Taylor HD. You can also listen to his weekend radio show on 93.7 The Fan. Download the Odyssey app. And what time do you come on? 8 a.m.?
It depends. I rotate with Shelby Cassesi, who's done Sunday mornings too. Duquesne graduate, she's like my little sister in the industry at this point. We alternate Sunday mornings, and usually if she's on at 7 a.m., I'm on at 10.
Gotcha.
This time the rotation has me on at 7 a.m. this week coming up, but normally I'm either 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. depending on how we rotate.
All right, so this coming up, if you want to hear Josh Taylor on 93.7 The Fan, download your Odyssey app. You can listen to him Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. It's a little too early for Bryan Tann's blood. But
it's too early for my blood. Especially when I do TV the night before.
Yeah, and you can, especially if you want to check out Josh on TV and see what he's bringing to the table, you can go to kdka.com. You can stream KDKA, and Josh will be on there as well. If you're a fan of college sports, Josh is also calling Duquesne games. The Duquesne's basketball season, the season's over now, right?
The regular season has come to an end. The women's tournament for the A10, Duquesne lost their first game to St. Joseph's, so that's come to an end too. I did maybe 6 or 7 women's games and 1 men's game this season. I also did a couple of Duquesne football games this past season on the radio, which was an awesome experience. So that was kind of cool too.
Does Duquesne do baseball? No.
Duquesne hasn't done baseball since I want to say 2006, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, those are some of the main places you can check out Josh Taylor. Make sure you're especially following him on Twitter, Josh Taylor HD, because he's always coming with the takes. Cam Hayward, y'all. That's all we got to say.
You know what the HD stands for, Bryan. You know what it is. You know what it is.
I know.
All day, HI double. You know how we do.
There you go. There you go.
Lights out to the lights out.
That's right. For real. Strength Tito.
Real quickly before we go, I got 2 little nuggets.
Here we go.
For you guys
from at JLaw 1995 on the tweet
that I just found. They're both NBA related. Okay,
let's go.
All right. So I remember we all really trashed the Tyrese Halliburton and DeMontis Sabonis trade. The Kings said that it was a win now move. Since that trade, both teams have the exact same record. They are 3-7 since that trade. And not only
win now move.
In what dimension?
Oh,
yeah. Listen, there's also news that the Kings owner is looking to buy Chelsea. Chelsea fans need to be out. No, you do not want that. You do not want that.
So is the Jets owner apparently.
Oh gosh.
Well, mainly because the Russian that owned it got rid of it. He phased out.
There's harder to pick like the worst of both worlds there.
Poor Chelsea. You finally get to the mountaintop, and then
damn.
And then the other nugget that's also from the NBA. Now, this is probably going to change tonight because the Nets are absolutely kicking the Hornets' teeth in right now. Although they're still halfway through the third quarter, anything's possible in the NBA. 20-point leads can go away just like that.
Yes, they can.
The Brooklyn Nets are tied with the Houston Rockets for the worst record in the NBA over the past 20 games. 3-17 is the record over the previous 20 games, as the same as the Houston Rockets.
I'd be lying if I said I was surprised. The only thing that surprises me is that the Lakers aren't in that same boat. It's the only thing that surprises me.
Yeah, you had like a 40-piece and a 56-piece from LeBron, like very close together. So
right.
I think that's what's kept them.
That's what kept them out of out of the dregs, if you will.
Hey.
My God.
Fair enough. Make sure you follow the show at Tanndemonium VSM, where you'll get my thoughts on things that are going on. Maybe I'll even live tweet some USFL. Nah, slow down. I'm just so excited for football that's not the NFL.
Maulers, baby, let's go.
The
Let's get
Pittsburgh Maulers, even though
Let's
they're all
get
going
it.
to be playing down in Alabama, Pittsburgh Maulers are back.
Bringing them back. Let's go.
That's right. You know what? Let's see Kenny Pickett forego the NFL draft, go to USFL. No.
See, now you wilding
Now you took it too far. Now you took it too far. All right, with that being said, we'll see Josh Taylor next month. That's Jackson Law. I'm Bryan Tann. We'll see you